Hello YouTube. Among the rare ethnicities of the Russian Federation, the Chaldons or Chaldoni, are perhaps the most mysterious. Mentions of these indigenous inhabitants of Siberia can be found in the works of classics of Russian literature. The Chaldons themselves are still surrounded by a halo of mystery. There is still no consensus on the origin of these people, and this is complicated by the fact that at the moment the Chaldons in Russia are almost extinct. How did these people appear in Siberia? According to one hypothesis, the Chaldons are descendants of the Kazakh settlers who came to these lands in the 13th century, if not earlier, long before Yermak, the warlord conqueror of Siberian lands, the local conquistador. And then they mixed with local indigenous people. Even the word Chaldon or Chaldon is considered by some researchers to be a combination of the names of two rivers, Don and Chalka. The presence of settlers from ancient Russia in these places many centuries ago is evidenced by the chain mail discovered by archaeologists, fragments of clay pots, a special kind of beads and other objects that were not peculiar to the local cultures. Similar finds were found in abundance in the southern part of Russia, in particular in the Volga region and on the Don River, and belong to the ancient Slavic culture. And in the part of Siberia where the Buryats lived, that's a local ethnicity, Chaldons were called people who, according to local residents, descended from the Russian Buryat marriages. Well, in 1895, the Yenisei newspaper in Siberia published an article stating that the Chaldon tribe living in eastern Siberia is related to the Abyssinians or Ethiopians. The author claimed that these people, in the time of the Pericles, voluntarily moved to Siberia and that it was he who brought Christianity there. But I think they are of much more ancient origin. Probably those who survived the demise of Pasifida, the ancient continent. I have my reasons. In general, these people are one of the continuous mystery, but one thing is clear for sure. They are very ancient. In many scientific and literary sources, like articles and dictionaries, of the last century, it is said that the Chaldons are the old-timers of Siberia and they can safely be called the indigenous population. If this word is not very familiar to the modern generation of Russians, then 100 years ago apparently it was almost synonymous with the concept of native Siberian. In Russian poet Yesenin's poem, we find the lines, "Stupid Siberian Chaldon, stingy as 100 devils he is." And there are many such references in the literature. However, most often the representatives of these people were portrayed by the author in a not very good looking way. They were spoken of disparagingly. They were exposed as narrow-minded people, unfriendly and dense. Perhaps this is due to the fact that according to the memoirs of Russian Siberian old-timers, the Chaldons always kept someone apart. Their settlements had their own ancient way of life. The dialect was also special, and the religion was a mixture of Christianity and paganism. For example, in the home or in the hut of Chaldon, in the so-called red corner, or most important part of the house, which they called Bajnitsa, in addition to icons, there could be ancient figurines of deities, non-Christian deities, of course. If the icon accidentally fell, the owner was always very worried, saying, "Oh, she-god will be offended." Interestingly, Chaldons in Siberia were also called yellow-bellied or people said that their skin naturally had a yellowish color from the fact that they drink too much tea. While the Russian settlers' traditions of cold, disdainful attitude toward the Chaldons are hidden in the fact that the Chaldeans resisted the Kazakhs of the Russian Tsar, or the Russian king. The Chaldean Russians, who spoke an outdated, funny, so to say, Russian language, did not know firearms and many other achievements of the civilization of that time, and besides opposed Russian colonization, and because they met the newly arrived settlers in these places. Religious views played a significant role in the negative attitude toward the Russian-speaking aborigines of Siberia. The Chaldeans were mostly pagans. Only some of them underwent Christianization in ancient times, but due to the lack of connection with religious centers, their Christian faith degenerated, as some describe, creating a kind of simplified symbiosis of paganism with elements of Christianity. The official church could not allow this and considered the Chaldeans as the pagans and apostates. These factors influenced not only the negative attitude towards the Chaldeans, but also the silencing of their merits in the development of Siberia. Not a single chronicle, not a single document of the Moscow kingdom directly speaks about the early Chaldean population of Siberia. But you know what? I do not trust the chronicles that much. See, later censorship and political intrigues changed the contents of the chronicles on occasion, especially after the reign of Tsar Peter the Great and the access of German adventurers at the Russian court to the historical documents of the empire. Some people believe that the history was rewritten, but we will not get into this here. I just wanted to mention it. But I heard one account that the Chaldeans legends tell that their ancestors never migrated to Siberia from either the west or the east. The old men of the indigenous Russian population of Siberia tell legends about their local kingdom, which stretched from the Pacific Ocean in the east to the Urals in the west. Their old songs and fairy tales mention the legendary times of the former military campaigns to the south in China and Tibet, to the southwest in Central Asia, Iran, and even India. In addition, there is a cycle of legends of indigenous Russian Siberians about the great campaign of their ancestors far to the west, to Russia and beyond in Danube. By the way, in the Dictionary of the Russian Dialects of Siberia, the authors Bukhareva and Fedotov indicate that in Mongolian, Chaldean means tramp, and the same could be read in the work of the famous Russian philologist Dahl. Later, the negative connotation of the word Chaldean was replaced by a neutral one, just meaning simply a Siberian old-timer. It can be added that Chaldean is not a self-designation of this sub-ethnos. This definition was given to them by immigrants from the European part of Russia when they met the Slavic communities and clans among the Mongol-originated groups of the population of Siberia. The Chaldean literally means like a man before us, where the concept of man as a definition of one's own is alien. People, tribesmen, are non-humans, other peoples, meaning. In Ukraine, man still sounds like cholovik in the Dictionary of General Vocabulary. Now, the definition of Chaldean can be compared with the word old-timer that is more understandable today, but that's not what it meant originally. Very little is known about modern Chaldeans. People who have had a chance to communicate with them pay attention to the fact that they live in remote, very remote Siberian villages. The house of Chaldean is traditionally divided into female and male halves. And I'll keep going over this. The hostess does not allow her husband to enter her territory, which of course includes the kitchen. And man is not allowed to cook and do any women's work. Just as a woman traditionally cannot do men's work, mending, chopping, whittling. In some houses it is still customary to cover the walls with the wild grouse feathers as a symbol of wealth. And children traditionally use the joints of elk, which their parents had hunted, as toys. The mentality of the Chaldeans is also interesting. By nature, they're self-sufficient and free people. This ethnicity is proud that it has always been free. From time immemorial, they have put the interest of the community above everything. And as they themselves said, they did not take off their hat to anyone. This mentality, characteristic of pre-Mongol Russia, has been preserved among them for centuries, up to the present day. An unusual feature of Chaldean traditions is the currently rarely observed taboo prohibition of a man entering the female half of the hut, including the kitchen, when a man is not allowed to touch anything in the kitchen so as not to defile. A man has no right to take even a mug in the kitchen to drink water, which generally speaking is very inconvenient. If you want to drink, you have to wait until one of the women pours and gives you this water. So they often put a tank with water and a ladle near the kitchen so that a man, not forcing the woman to help, can drink. Only a woman has the right to cook food, to apply medicinal treatments, wash dishes, and tidy up in the kitchen of the Siberian Chaldeans. Therefore, in order to prevent a man from entering the kitchen, a woman is obliged to feed and give a man drink, give him water if he wants to drink. Any man who tries to enter the kitchen will immediately be scolded by women. In turn, a woman should not use male tools and enter the household male half, usually a shed with tools, to pick up a sickle or a hammer. Thus, despite the equality of men and women, when it is not considered reprehensible if girls run along with boys to fish on the river and graze cattle, and women go hunting, in Chaldean traditions, the distribution of female and male family responsibility by gender is laid down. It's like a law. With the Chaldeans, a woman serves dishes and to the table from the kitchen, pours tea, and brings cooked food to the table, because men are forbidden to enter the kitchen. And although women are not forbidden to sit at the table with men, however, women never sit at the table until the table is ready and men have started eating. Among the Siberian Chaldeans, women rarely sit and eat at the same table with men. Usually women sit at the same table with men only during the holidays. Despite the adoption of Christianity by Chaldeans, due to the similarity of old pagan faith of the Chaldeans with Christianity, in which the role of gods was replaced by saints and angels, pagan remnants remain in the superstitions of Russian Siberians. And among the icons in that red corner on the Bajnitsa, among the bone-carved god of one of the local Siberian people remains. At the end of the last century, young ethnographers of the Omsk State University conducted a survey among residents of remote Siberian villages. Along with other questions, they were asked to indicate what ethnicity they consider themselves to be, the Chaldeans. More than 30% identified themselves as Chaldeans, and there were even more of them than those who call themselves Russians. Meanwhile, this once numerous people in our time, alas, is considered almost extinct. It is not known exactly how many true Chaldeans are left in Russia, because some Siberians may refer to themselves as such, but in fact they're not. They can prefer to know they can pretend to know the culture and music and dances, but it is doubtful they're genuine. Some I'm sure are, but you know how it is. In behavioral terms, Chaldeans are characterized by their neighbors to exhibit slowness, conscientiousness, poor memorization abilities, stubbornness, good nature, independence, a tendency to disobey authority, and the priority of the public collective above all. In the past, the Chaldeans in villages were defined by the proverb, "The porch glitters, that's where the Chaldeans live." That is, by the distinctive feature of their performance of any work due to the stubbornness and conscientiousness, characteristic of representatives of this ethnic group? Well, there are very few real Chaldeans living in Siberian villages, and they're mostly elderly people, a unique people. They're predicted to die out already in this century, and it is unknown whether it will be possible to revive this ethnicity. I would love to find out more about the ancient beliefs of the Chaldeans. You see, in the territory of Siberia, there are traces of the recent flood. We're speaking about like centuries ago, Great Deluge, as well as there are strange craters, similar to those that remain after the use of high-power weapons. We do not know exactly how this happened, and there are accounts of independent researchers about this. Apparently, the strongest cataclysm in that area struck in the form of a powerful flood and then a meteor shower mixed with the powerful destructive weapons which destroyed most of the Siberian cities. Legends of the Chaldeans of Siberia tell that far to the east in the ocean, the cities of the Rus of Dawn died in the fires. Did the Chaldeans come from there, from the Pacifida? And I described this ancient territory in my other videos. We'll find out, hopefully. But if you like my research, and I intend to bring you more similar stories and reports, please support me in the links you'll find in the description to this video. Please tell others about my channel, and thank you for your attention.